All right, so we have a history of activism at Georgia State University, beginning with a newspaper caption of history of protest over the generations in 1939 against the legislative election, with signs that read, to have a dictator or not to have one. Is Georgia a democracy or a monarchy? Next, followed by We Protest in 1960s, where it was a protest against dismissal of two political science professors, angry because the school would not let some of the departing professors teach during summer school. Then we meet the paper plate protest, which occurred in the 80s. It was marches in front of the Urban Life Center, formerly now known as the Law School. And the signs there read, "We need schools, jobs, food, and peace." And leading to our interview today is the Georgia Students Make Demands, which is a 1992 incident of a racial slur written on a campus trash can. My name is Nicole Wilson. Today is April 22nd. Today I have the privilege of sitting with Dr. Eric Bridges, who will discuss his role in the modern civil rights movement. Thank you again for meeting with me today, Dr. Bridges.
You're welcome.
As I look around your office, I noticed that it is not the usual or what I would have expected to be. However, I assume that it does represent you.
Yeah, it does. I just shifted my picture. I was, one of the things, two things. When you were reading that, some of the stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
Some of that I did not know, and I was listening and I was like, wow, it's been going on a long time. Then another thing, and I'm real informal. I just get like this the older I get. So if I may, I was meeting with a brother, one of my students, a young brother who was just in here.
Mm-hmm.
And, since you don't know his name, I can tell you a little about the gist of the conversation. He was saying, what was your trajectory like, your personal trajectory? How did you get to where you are now? And I kind of wish I really had put a little chair so he could sit back there so he can hear all of this, but he's gone now. And that would have been really good because he is a young brother who is, trying to make his way in the world.
Right.
And where he comes from, quite honestly, like he told me personally, that he goes to sleep at night hearing gunshots. Wow. And so it's like a testament, like, since you don't know who he is, like I look at his grades, he has a 4.0 GPA. Amazing. And when people that are not in the African American community see him, white people, when they see him, they assume because of his dress that he may be a criminal or he may be, I don't know. The stereotype, right? The stereotypes that they have, but nobody would assume that this brother has a 4.0 GPA. And so I say all that to say I kind of wish I was like, man, if I had the insight and the awareness, say like, put a little chair, he just sits in the corner because it's real important. And the reason why I start with that is because, like, when you see my office,
mm-hmm.
the thing I was sharing with him is that he made me reflect that I come from a legacy of activist scholars. And it was the dialogue that he and I just had, right, that I think was real and critical to what we did as students. Because we had African American faculty whose offices looked just like this. Like I could call, like say for instance, I was just telling him about Dr. Asa Hilliard, okay, whose office was, if you know Baba Asa, mm-hmm, Hilliard, who's fully Callaway professor at Georgia State and the African-centered scholar, his office looked like this. And so he was unapologetically proud to be a man of African descent. So we had those types of professors like that. Mm-hmm. That was a beautiful thing. And one of the things about it is the fact that these were professors. You know how some people, their personalities can be over the top? Yeah. He was a regular brother, They were regular brothers and regular sisters. So that was real important. So I think I'm real big into venerating like particular African American icons. And so on my desk I have, Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and then Omowale, Malcolm X. And that's real important, both of those people. I tend to ascribe more so to the philosophy of Malcolm X. Just because I appreciated the analytical nature of his the way he thought. Dr. King was very much as Dr. John Henry Clark says, was the spiritual mouthpiece, so to speak, of the black community. So they were both beautiful brothers. So that's real important to me.
I can understand.
Yeah. So
definitely, they definitely paved the way for activists today.
Yeah.
When I reached out to you in reference to your critical role in the advancement for civil and human rights, did it automatically bring back any memory?
This is going to sound funny. It might make your mouth drop. I don't think I told you this. Oh yeah, it brought back memories, but it brought back memories about my experience here at Clayton State.
Really?
I didn't tell you this because, you know, when you say that, I don't know. I guess I'm not one that is overly humble, but I guess I am. And the reason why I say it like that, then I'm gonna tell you the memory it brought back about Clayton State, is because when like we talk, what we did talk about in the late '80s, early '90s, it was a culture of music wherein you had this militancy, and then it was this education, edutainment, or whatever you call it, wherein there was this ethos out, wherein young people had agency.
It's true, people like Public Enemy.
Yeah, I mean, they had agency. So I tell my students when they hear about the protests, I was like, we were wet behind the ears. I mean, I was wearing a bubble jacket. I had on jeans, and I wasn't gonna get into Timberlands. I just didn't get into Timberlands. I had some boots that looked like Timberlands. You know what I'm saying? And then so the reason why I brought back a memory here, because I didn't tell you this, when I got my job here at Clayton State, I never told anybody about my participation in the student sit-in. No, I didn't.
Really?
Not here at Clayton State. And then the way the universe works, as they say, so it doesn't work serendipitously. Trust me, I know that. I come into work one day, and some of my white colleagues, they're in the lobby, and they have an issue. They have a journal, the issue, Black Issues in Higher Education. And I forgot what anniversary of the sit-in it was, but they had the picture of us sitting on the floor with our little fist in there. Wow. And so one of the chairs of the departments here at Clayton State was like, read the caption, Georgia State student Eric Bridges, and participates in Georgia State University's sit-in. So they were like, is that you? So I was like, no.
Really?
I lied.
What made you deny it?
I'm gonna tell you why. I lied. And so they were like, yeah, it looks like a little 14-year-old version of you. And this might shock Dr. Favors, because I lied. I was like, no, I read my good government job. That's why I lied. And so I was like, that's not me. That's not me. So I get in my office. At the time, I shared an office with Dr. Norman, who's over in business school now.
Okay.
And I shut the door. I was like, dude, for real? I'm getting ready to get fired. I didn't have tenure at the time, all that.
So representing Black Power.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I have bills to pay. And so that's why I said, when you said that, I don't know, you said the, struggle for I was just like afraid. Just like I was afraid when I participated in that sit-in. And I think that's important to hear. So my boss comes in and she says, is it really you? So I was like, if I say it's me, am I gonna keep my job? And she said, why wouldn't you? I was like, come on now. What white school, as far as higher administration, where higher administration don't like the students, gonna keep a brother like me? So she was like, but I think it's kind of cool. I said, it's me. But I was like, but I kid you not, I don't know. I think some of the professors here may have had certain negative, perceptions about it.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into that detail. I can go into it, one-on-one, but I don't want to go into that detail. But that's the reason why I did it. Because it was just like, nah. And I saw a book chapter from some editor in Europe where they talked about the sit-ins at Georgia State.
Okay.
That's when I started figuring out, wow, that was deep. I guess what we did was kind of not to be diminishing of it. It was just like that's when it really hit me of the brevity of that time. So that's the experience that came back to me, is that experience here.
Right.
Because I was just like, I didn't want anybody to know.
Understandable.
I didn't want anybody to know. And like I had one friend who was very active. You know, I don't know if it was rumored, if the rumor was true or not, that he couldn't even step foot on Georgia State's campus after that because he, I don't know if he was kicked out. I don't want to put that information, I don't want to put erroneous information out there, but he had some hardships with staying at Georgia State. And so it was volatile in many instances. I guess when you said, you know, why didn't you tell him? I was always the pragmatic one. Because at the end of the day, I always used to tell my colleagues who participated in the sit-in, I was like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And the reason why I'm not is because I just think it takes the power of agency away from us as black people. But I knew, I was like, make sure your GPA is high. Make sure you doing what you got to do in order that all your stuff is covered. You know what I'm saying? Make sure your butt is covered because they gonna come.
That is true.
And if they come and all your stuff is in order, then it's nothing else but the fact that you participate in this sit-in. Because if your grade, your GPA is decent, you haven't done any criminal activities, all that stuff. And that's not to say that that lessens anybody that did, but I knew. And so I was always pragmatic. In those meetings, I was like, make sure, because they gonna come after you. And so those were the experiences that came back to mind.
I respect that. Well, speaking of your experiences and memories, when we did meet, you was mentioning your parents about not having any college background. Can you explain that and, you know, taking back to your childhood and upbringing, the Eric Bridges before the doctorate degree?
I mean, I grew up in a two-parent household. My dad worked at General Motors. He retired. My mom worked for two insurance companies, Cotton State and Metropolitan Life. That's interesting because Metropolitan Life was one of the companies that insured enslaved Africans. And so it was just like neither one of them, both of them had started college in some capacity. My mom started at Georgia State, and then she had me at 18, and my adopted dad was taking economics classes at Atlanta Metropolitan College.
Okay.
There was an expectation. You know, my dad, I guess my pragmatic side comes from him, whereas my more vocal side comes from my mother, because my mother grew up here in Atlanta in what is known as, now it's known as Old Fourth Ward, off of Boulevard, but it used to be known as Buttermilk Bottom. And like, if you know anything about buttermilk is sour. Like I can't stand buttermilk. It makes good cornbread, but it's sour. But the worst part of the buttermilk is at the bottom, meaning in the context of the community she was in was considered like the bottoms of Atlanta society. But she had a lot of love, and I say that to say because I grew up with a lot of love, but then I also grew up with this expectation. My mom, you know, you asked that question. My mom used to tell me and my brother, she's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So you can always say how you feel and what you think, as long as you do it in a way that's not disrespectful. So I grew up in a household, you know, traditionally, a lot of times, black children, if they, you know, challenge elders, they're like, don't sass your elders. And I had elders that would say, that boy, and my mom was like, no, because this society is so bent on silencing black males. Like, yes, my sons can disagree with me respectfully. And so I grew up in this intellectually, you know, engaged house with my mom. Like, my mom reads everything. She still reads everything. And like, I could say, Mom, I don't agree with this. And she was like, really? Because I remember one time I asked her a question when I was a teenager. I said, Mom, is money power? And she said, yes. I said, no, it's not.
Wow.
And she said, okay, let's hear the argument. She said, let's hear the argument. And I said, Bill Cosby tried to buy CBS. He had the collateral, he had all the money. CBS said no, because they knew inherently that that would give him control of images that were disseminated of black people. That's power. So my mom was like, okay, he won this debate. So we would have these debates, and I grew up in this household, like I said, where it was this expectation that you just was gonna say what you feel, as long as you did it respectfully. So I think that has bearing upon, I think, what we did, because I think a lot of my friends, they had that kind of upbringing.
Okay, thank you. It's funny that you mentioned Bill Cosby, because my next question is in reference to a comment that you made on the television sitcom A Different World, encouraging the youth to want to go to college. So my question to you is, what was it that led you to Georgia State University?
This is going to shock you too. I started off at Morehouse. Morehouse is expensive. I had a half tuition scholarship at Morehouse.
Okay.
And then, just like a lot of people that couldn't afford Morehouse or any of the AU schools, you just transfer to Georgia State. So it was a little sad moment, because you go from one prestigious HBCU
right
to little. At the time, nobody wanted to go to Georgia State. Now everybody wants to go to Georgia State. Georgia State now is the institution, not only the state of Georgia to go to, but in the nation to go to. Especially with this merger getting ready to happen with Georgia State and Georgia Perimeter College. At the time, nobody wanted to go to Georgia State. So that's how I ended up at Georgia State, because I started off at Morehouse, couldn't afford Morehouse, and I wanted to finish college. So I transferred to Georgia State. A lot of my high school friends, they were already there anyway, and so it was just like, hey,
You said at home.
It was very much a practical decision. Yeah.
What was your field of study?
I majored in sociology, and I had a minor in psychology. And so I had a young brother who was named Michael Hodge. And Michael Hodge is about 8 or 10 years older than me. Maybe I'm just gonna say 10, just so I can, make him old. Because our birthdays are on the same day. And so he was my research methods professor at Georgia State in sociology. And so he was my only real mentor as far as in the Department of Sociology. I had one professor whose name I won't call out of respect, because he's now deceased, and then he said something disparaging. He was my advisor, and he said, do not major, don't study anything about anybody, don't study anything about people of African descent. And I said, why? He said, because it's too personal for you. And this professor, was Jewish, and all he studied was Jewish issues. So I called him on it, and he was like, well, it's different for me. And so I was just like, that's interesting, because your Jewishness, if that's such a word, your faith in the Jewish religion and being a person of Jewish ancestry is very personal to you, and you're going to tell me that I can't study anything dealing with African American issues because it's so personal for me. So sociology was interesting. If it hadn't been for Michael Hodge, I don't think I would have graduated from that school.
Wow. Well, when did you know that it was time to take a stand?
Oh, I knew when we didn't know. I knew for a minute, but when me and Michael Pope found that trash can, my frat brother Michael Pope, who now lives in Japan, we found that trash can with N-word. I have to be careful, because I said the actual word on Derek Bozeman's show, and I didn't know it's some FCC mandate that you can't, regulation that you can't use that word. So I'm being very careful. But we know what the N word is. We knew then, but things, as we discussed, had been going on for years prior to that. And one of the things I didn't share, when we had the commemorative anniversary, I don't know if you saw in the brochure that it was this legacy. Like, there's a state representative, I don't know if she's still in there, Mabel Thomas. She was some years older than me, like about 15 years even before we got to Georgia State. African American students had been doing things. So I want to stress that, because there was that it wasn't some spontaneous thing that just happened like bam, like a blow up of a supernova. It was a constant build up. And I think with the commemorative anniversary and with the call that Dr. Yamoja did for that, he was brilliant in bringing back all of these people over a 20-year time span,
right.
so you could see how the sitting actually happened. That it was not some, instantaneous, spontaneous thing. That it had been a gradual buildup over many years.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know if I stressed that when we first talked.
No, you did not. Were you nervous with your role? Well, you said it a little while, yeah, that you were nervous.
Yeah, I mean, your mom tell you, she's like, we proud of you, but we're not bailing you out of jail, boy. And then when...
It's always like that.
Yeah, and then when, Joseph Lowry, he comes, and I have, like, the utmost respect for him because he came, he brought us food because we thought about a lot of things logistically, but we didn't think about the fact that we may be in there for many hours and we didn't have any food. So he brought us food, but then on a very serious note, he was like, the Red Dogs could come in here. And we knew what that meant. And so, a lot of times, like I was just stressing to the student that was in here because he was messing with me because he heard me use the term with the door open, psychopathic racial personality. He said, Dr. Richards, you always talk like that. You feel comfortable talk like white people like that. I said, I don't want you to get a mistaken notion. I'm going to use an expletive that I'm some badass nigga. I mean, you're going to have to edit that out. I just said it. But I was like, I think the thing is that when we don't speak truth to power, and we always I feel like we have to not be authentic and not share our story. It's not done in a way wherein you offend anyone or anything like that. Because like I said, my mama said, you speak your mind, say what you say. And so yeah, I guess the question, we thought about the repercussions. I thought about the repercussions, but we just did what we felt we had a divine mandate, if I may use that term, to do.
Okay, that was understandable. Well, after doing some research leading up to a few exhibits,
you finding stuff I didn't know about.
Oh yes.
Like I never knew about this. Wow.
Well, the image I just handed you is a cartoon with then President Carl V. Payne in the mouth of a lion holding two sheep with Greek letters for the fraternity that wrote the racial slur on the university trash can. What were your thoughts on the racial tension on campus?
I've never seen this depiction, so can I hold this up before
Oh yeah, sure, you can hold it.
I never saw this depiction. And so I guess my question is, to me, are they saying that the student who participated in the sit-in with a lion, is that what this is supposed to depict?
That's what I was asking you. I thought you'd seen that.
I had never seen this. It looks, I guess, I don't know if they're trying to say, I see their caption, Silence of the Lambs,
Yes,
Das Lion, and then they call him Carl Patton, Das Chicken. So I guess they were implying that there was some kind, like the students who participated in the sit-in were like the lion trying to silence. This is deep. Racial tensions. The funny thing about it with this depiction, one of the things that was precipitated the sit-in is that I forget which sorority it was. So I'm not going to say I think I know who it was, but I'm very careful not to put out information about organizations because I'm not trying to get sued, number one. And so I don't know what it was, but it was funny. They would do I think they were real good at propaganda because they had something called Harlem Nights. And they had the Supremes on their bulletin in afros and all of that. And then they would have pictures done in blackface, things like that. So, you know, the tensions were real, and I think a lot of times on the part of the white Greeks, they were very much strategic, and it was almost as if they were just like they do, like people can do now, just do things in order to just get under your skin. And the African American students on campus, I think at that time had a political awareness to know what was going on. And so there were different things from like the depiction of people in blackface. There was one young woman who wanted to join, and I know her personally, she wanted to join a white sorority. And she was just told flat out, no, we don't rush black women.
Wow. And
she ended up pledging a historical black sorority, but it was blatant. It was blatant. So it's funny they see themselves as victims, because I did not see them as victims. I did not see the white fraternities, sororities as victims. I saw them as very much aggressive in what they were doing. And then when they were called on it, then they were like, oh, we little victims. And they had their little protests afterwards, and it was really it was a joke to me. I'll say that quite candidly, because here you had these privileged, and a lot of students that attended Georgia State working class, a lot of the fraternity sorority members, the white ones, they were privileged. So they doing this little protest, and they got no clout at all, not even from the masses of white students, because they knew it was like, some spoiled kids that's trying to say, well, we're being attacked, whatever. But racial tensions were high, in a nutshell. They were high.
I think so. As to where I get to my second exhibit.
You come prepared, boy.
Yes.
Oh, snap.
Here it says, this is your university Signal newspaper article cites the demands of the student protesters regarding the recent racial slurs found written on the trash can. What do you think of that image?
Let me look through these. I need to process. We want assurances that all participants will not be docked pay nor in any way reprimanded or punished for participation in today's activities. Non-negotiable. Immediate formation of an African American Studies Department. Okay, that was a big one. That was real big.
Well, can you address the demands that you all were making?
We, because of what had happened historically on Georgia State's campus, primarily, I'm looking, I don't know if these are all the demands. Hold on one second. The reason why I say that, we were very strategic about, we wanted the immediate formation of an African American Studies Department, and we also addressed the need for there to be more African American faculty that were tenure track. I don't see that on here.
Let me see it.
That's the reason I'm asking, because part of that, the reason why I bring that up, that was big, We did want Kara Pearson and Dean Buttermore fired. I think that's on there, but we were very much mindful that
the highlights of those demands that are numbered.
Yeah. Okay, I was looking at they were not bold. Okay, tenured African American.
Yes, it is.
So this was real important, because we had done our homework. We had done our homework. And I think that's what a lot of times that is real important. People hear that we were young people that were very much politically engaged in the campus, because we knew that, just like we still know as faculty and as now parents, that when you have faculty that are reflective of the students, it makes a big difference in the student success. And we knew, and this is the thing, because we had faculty members that were engaging with us. So we made these lists of demands. They were very, I guess my point, we had thought them out.
Mm-hmm.
We had thought them out, and we didn't do it in a vacuum. We had mentorship from faculty and administrators. And I think that was the beauty of it, because it was the community. So we sat for hours, days really, coming up with these things. Some things like number 11, investigation of the entire Dean Student Division by outside authority, immediate resignation of Dean Carol Pearson, Dean H. King Buttermore, pending the outcome. That we knew. You know, it had to go. You know?
I think that's amazing that you all took the time out, you know. Okay, well, getting into the third exhibit here, another image from your student newspaper, The Signal.
This one I remember.
Addressing the aftermath from the recent incident where the racial epitaph was written on the university trash can. And as I quote, the article says, "Student protest rocked Georgia State." My question to you, how?
I mean, people did get fired. Carl V. Patton, he had only been there 3 months from my understanding when we did this, and it was very much, you know, that was traumatic for him.
Oh, definitely.
Coming into it. So, you know, we found out things actually at the student conference, at the commemorative conference, actually, that gave me, let me speak on my behalf, not on any of the other colleagues of mine that protested, and they may disagree with me if this ever shown. We found out things that put him, in my perspective, in a more positive light. The reason why I say that, because it was him that really, part of it was selfish, I think. Well, let me put it as self-interest, wherein he didn't want the Red Dogs to come up in there. And, you know, when you talk about rock Georgia State, they thinking about doing that at a major urban institution. That was something big. It was a Department of African American Studies that was founded. You know, we look at Georgia State today, and its demographic. When they say rock, that rock, I guess, was like a rock being thrown into the ocean or something, where it has reverberations. So it's interesting they said rock. I think they were just, you know, to me, I think maybe that's just something, I don't know who wrote it.
Reader's attention.
Yeah, I guess so, but it had reverberations. I like to think of, like, looking back, hindsight being 2020, you know, I think it did. You shut down a business building on the day that people come to pay their tuitions. That's gonna rock something. That is. It's gonna rock. They you know, folks can't pay tuition. I like to think cash can only symptom of problems too. So yeah, I think definitely. When they say rock, because I don't think at that time there was an expectation that student activism would take place at a place like Georgia State. There's this expectation that it happens at the AU Center, but maybe not at Georgia State. So maybe for the institution of Georgia State, that was something that rocked their world.
Definitely. I'll let you. All right, so what were your thoughts during that sit-in?
What are my thoughts? I'm 47. I was in my early 20s. Oh my God, what are my thoughts? I can tell you more so what my emotions were like.
Okay.
Rather than thoughts, because I can't remember thoughts per se. Emotionally, it was exciting. Wow. There's no way that it could not have been exciting. We were some students, you know what I'm saying? So it was very exciting. It was, one of the things that really strikes me was the loyalty among us. To me, that was beautiful, because like on the real, you know how you can have beef with your brothers and sisters and all that. We had issues. I don't want you to think it was all peachy keen because we got into arguments. We got into arguments afterwards, all of it before, and so to me, the rather than thoughts, intellectually I can't go there, but emotionally I remember that because one of the beautiful things I think about activism is that it brings out the humanity, the best of humanity. And I think that you have to deal with the worst, but I think we dealt with it as young people in a way that I think now, if I look at all of the people, a lot of the people involved, it was something that was very evolutionary for us on a personal level. There was fear for me, because like I said, I didn't want to go to jail. When my mama called, my mom and dad called, they were like, we're not bailing you out. We proud of you. You know, that was good to hear. But then, I think at one point in time when we went in there, there was a certain amount of innocence that verged up on being naive. Then when Joseph Lowry came in there and he told us, then we knew what we were really dealing with. So the emotions ran from like you really being proud of your brothers and sisters and sticking it out and how we work together.
Right.
That was real important. I mean, we had to sneak people in, and there was we had to sneak people in, and we had to take care of each other. I think some people got, if I'm not mistaken, I think some people got sick. I mean, dehydrated. I mean, you got 200 students. It's over 200 students in that building, and then it's a few hundred more in general classroom building. The gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender alliance. So, yeah, those were glorious times. Those were glorious times. And that's not to sensationalize it because, like I say, good and bad, but those were beautiful times. They really were. And it's my hope. I'm glad you did this. I have to thank you, for reaching out because one of the things that's real important is that, young people today hear about this legacy so they don't feel like I'm real big. I guess this is psychologist in me. They feel like they don't have any power. That's real big. So, if you could like share this with undergrads and young people, that would really be good.
Most definitely. I would, definitely share this with as many people as I can in the social media world.
I thank you. Yeah.
You're very welcome. I'm honored.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so I'll get into my fifth exhibit. And it talks about 20 years later, where Georgia State University Department of African American Studies invited you to their commemoration and symposium with the title "Through the Fire," and this had to do with the impact of the 1992 student sit-in. What was it like to be invited to this conference? Meeting.
I'm just gonna share something. This is sort of an aside. It was good. It was beautiful, and I'm glad that Akinyele Umoja, and one of the books I use, like Akinyele Umoja, who wrote the book. I use this book. It's called "We Will Shoot Back" in my class. The reason why I hold it up is because Akinyele Umoja is the second chair of the Department of African American Studies, and this is his definitive work on the armed resistance movement and Mississippi Freedom Movement. And the reason why I bring that up because this is a brother as chair, and he's on speaking engagements and all those kind of things. He was like, if you ask me to speak to your classes about this book, I'm gonna do it. You don't even have to pay me. And I'm a scoundrel because I ain't gotta pay. And so he always would start off his discussion is just like, your professor is the person that found a trash can that now I have a job as chair, because if it was not for those sit-ins, I would not be at Georgia State right now. You see what I'm saying? So that's where we sitting there and he's saying that, and I can yell at Umoja, I can yell at Omawale Umoja. When he says that, it hits.
And can you spell his name?
Yeah. His first name I can yell at Akinyele. I'm Akinyele. And Omawale, that was actually Malcolm X's Yoruba name. The son returns home. Omawale, Omowale, and then Umoja. If I'm not mistaken, that means unity, right?
Yes.
Yes. I speak a little Yoruba. Umoja. And so this book, he being the author, him being the second chair of the Department of African American Studies,
right, is
a direct call. It's a direct outcome of that sit-in. And so I'm like beyond words that it was important for him and the students and the administration to recognize the importance of the sit-in, as far as the history of Georgia State University, and now what Georgia State University is as far as an urban institution. So just like sitting there and listening to not only students that participated in the sit-in at Georgia State, but listening to like Garfield Bright, who's now working on his PhD at Georgia State, who was a member of SHI. He was at Howard at the time, and they did a sit-in when Howard was going to ask. They wanted to put Lee Atwater, a devout racist, on their board of trustees, and April Silver, who is Harlem, I'm not mistaken, a Harlem activist now, and Ross Baraka, who, if I'm not mistaken, is now mayor of Newark, New Jersey, who's the son.
I did come across this.
Who is the son of Amiri Baraka. So I'm making a case that these people were there, and so it was this whole time in the late '80s and early '90s, where students were doing this kind of thing. So it was beautiful. It was really. I use that word. I've used that word a lot, but it really was.
It was a great honor.
It was a great honor. It really was. Charles E. Jones was the first, the inaugural chair of the Department of African American Studies, and they are always so. They are always so gracious about honoring the history and the legacy of the city.
And if I recall, in my research as well, which I don't have with me, you mentioned Charles E. Jones.
You do some research.
I know.
I'm going to give a sister some credit. You do some research.
Thank you. Well, this one is going off the top of the head, so please, correct me if I'm wrong. Charles E. Jones wrote a book on the Black Panther Reconsidered, and he acknowledged you.
Yeah, Black Panther Party Reconsidered.
Yes.
And it's funny because when I graduated with my undergrad from Georgia State, I stayed and worked on my master's in Ed Psych at Georgia State, and I was Charles E. Jones. The reason why we say Charles E. because there's a Charles O. Jones in academia. Okay. So he made that distinction. And so Dr. Jones introduced me. I'm getting happy now. I was already happy, but I get really excited. Dr. Jones introduced me to the whole world of the Black Panther Party. Really? And when I was I was his graduate research assistant, and I just used to love it because he would be like young blood, and I use that, and the young brothers be thinking oh, that's cool, but Dr. Jones was like young blood, such and such, and they would talk to you like that. So yeah, he wrote the Black Panther Party Reconsider. He actually edited the book, and that is his definitive work.
Wow.
Dr. Jones is cool because Dr. Jones now is at the University of Cincinnati, and his research range from the Black Panther Party. Check this. His research range from the Black Panther Party, I get all excited, to the Congressional Black Caucus, and he studies Parliament Funkadelic. P-Funk. He want to write a book on P-Funk. Yeah.
Wow.
He is so, when I tell you that department, this is funny because you asked that question. I am so proud of the scholarship and the activism because the Department of African American Studies at Georgia State. See, this needs to be on their website because I better get them. I mean, this really, I'm gonna bring tears to my eyes. As students, that's where we wanted that department to be. Wherein they produce this groundbreaking research, but they stay so grounded in the community. And that is the legacy I think I can say for myself, and I can be very presumptuous to say for the 200 something other students that participated. That's the legacy we wanted. And so, yeah, Charles E. Jones, Akinyele Umoja, all of the faculty there, they are really much, if we could like have a faculty like that was so committed to activism, intellectual activism on behalf of African descended people, it's that department. And that is, to me, the greatest triumph of the student sit-in.
Okay. Well, back to now my 5th exhibit. I show it. This exhibit here, I read in your program that the new African People's Organization, also known as the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, and the new African Panthers proudly supported the activities to founding of the African American Studies at Georgia State. What was it like to have their support?
Well, my knowledge is of their support. I mentioned Akinyele Umoja, who is a member of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. I think at the time, either was an adjunct professor at Georgia State or either was taking some classes. I can't remember. But Dr. Umoja, being a member of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, offered like a lot of mentorship. I didn't know him, and the reason why I'm having a little hesitancy, I knew that they did, but I was not in those particular conversations. And so I want to be very respectful of their work. I know Akinyele, Dr. Umoja, Baba, I call him Baba, that he was very much in conversation with several of the students that were very much instrumental in putting together the city. So yeah, I mean, but my whole grasp of it, my whole grasp, I don't have a lot of understanding. I don't know a lot of the conversations that took place, but yeah, it was my knowledge of it is that the environment came primarily through Dr. Umoja and several of the other students that were, I dare say, proteges of Dr. Umoja.
Okay. And you can correct me on pronunciation on this Sankofa Society. Sankofa Society, which is their mission is to promote student activism and community outreach for the Black youth. And I quote from their title, "Learn from our past so we can move forward in the future."
So the Sankofa comes from the Akan, and the Sankofa bird is a bird. Its head is looking backwards, but it's going forward. So you hit it on the nail. Knowing your past so you can go forward. And that's real important.
So what's your thoughts of that organization?
I think it's very much apropos, given what we are talking about. Wherein, if I'm not mistaken, this organization is housed in the Department of African American Studies, and so it makes perfect sense. And so it is it's a distinct honor, I think, and also pays tribute to the sit-ins, and then not only the sit-ins, but the history of student activism, particularly African descendant student activism at Georgia State. And so I think the Akan word, Sankofa, learn from our past so we can move forward in the future, is quite appropriate.
I agree.
Yeah.
I really. All right, so we'll get into lucky number 7 exhibit. I call blessed number 7, which is my final exhibit. It is on the Department of African American Studies, and I'll just briefly read it where it's stating that it was founded in 1994,
Mm-hmm.
and it offers an interdisciplinary approach to the study of African people nationally and globally. It recognizes how issues and factors in addition to race affect the lives of African people worldwide. The department also provides students with the intellectual origins, concepts, research, and models of disciplines, the knowledge and skills necessary for the study of group cultures, and a curriculum that contributes to the goals of multicultural education. Presently, the department is offering a Bachelor's of Arts degree and a minor in African American Studies. My question to you is, how do you feel about the Department of African American Studies that was founded in 1994?
I just reiterate. I mean, I'm beyond proud. I mean, on the real, I'm beyond proud.
So?
Yeah, I mean, and now, I don't think, when was this, you got this, because now they offer a master's.
Right, I also found that information as well.
Yeah, they offer a master's degree, and I think there's several tracks. Don't quote me on the word tracks, but I know that I think there's an education component, maybe, this is not the best word, something dealing with community activism. But I'm beyond proud. I mean, because like I said earlier, this is the legacy about the engaged intellectual,
right.
Engaged activist intellectual that is needed, and I think the Atlanta African American Atlanta community and the larger Atlanta community is so much better off because of the scholarship that comes out of this department. So my point being, someone that participated in the sit-in is that, like I say, I mean, this is fantastic. I sat on the inaugural advisory board. I was the president.
Really?
Yeah, I was the president, and not the best president. You can't do everything well, and so I put that out there. That's why I can yell it, and all my apologies and things like that. But I think if anything, if we can support the Department of African American Studies,
yes,
and whether it be like through financial, because they need money to do this research, and
that is true.
yeah, it's real. I mean,
I'm actually working on one here in Clayton State.
Yeah, and I see we get a major in African American Studies at Clayton State. It's a pipeline to their master's program, and so those are strategic connections, and that's how we have to think if we are to empower our people as a global people. I think the emphasis on, when he talks about the diaspora and multiculturalism, that's real important, because we don't see ourselves as just black folk here in Atlanta and Georgia. We country and we cosmopolitan. We do it like that because I'm from Decatur, and so little country and you're a little city, so it's beautiful, and I think that is I think what they're doing is beyond what words in English. They have to put them in some Yoruba, but in English it's beyond. So I really feel it for here. This is where I really feel it, because this is where it should be, and I see them just like that Sankofa bird, just constantly, because they're doing great things now.
Okay.
I'm just gonna keep moving forward.
I think that's a great feeling. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add, or better yet, a message you would like to give to upcoming youth activists, as myself, for our future goals and plans?
Oh, wow. First, let me just say, like I said, I'm so appreciative that you are doing this. If I can think about anything, and this not to sound Pollyannish or cliche-ish, it's just like, Be proud of your culture. Be proud of who you are as Black people. And then, you know, what's real important is just like know that you have every right to be here on this planet. And the reason why I say it like that, because so many times I think that as we as African people, people try to take our voice away.
Definitely.
People try to take our power away. And so, you know, in all of that magnificence, because I tend to be somewhat poetic, you know, in all of our magnificence, it's real important that we have a strong inner sense of who we are, where we come from, and you know because when you that's what we had. That's what we had. Strategies. I think I heard Kathleen Cleaver say this. You know, be very much communal. Be able to. And the reason why I guess I'm so animated because when she said it in the Weather Underground, I show my graduate students the Weather Underground, the documentary on the Weather Underground. She said, what makes a unit, what gives organizations, revolutionary organizations, their power is that they have a sense of love, sense of commitment, and a sense of humor.
Okay.
Because that's what binds you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to be very much detailed, logistically, strategic, all those things. But when COINTELPRO broke them up, the way the government broke them up, they took away the trust that they had for one another, the love they had for one another, and the humor. And those sound like really, I know people say, I think they think it's going to be something grand, but when you don't have that, then you can't work together. And you know how, you know, especially we as African people, you know, you got to have that love. You got to have that love. And that gives us, so I just say, you know, you do this work, you know, I'm reminded, I guess the yoga instructor in me is that you got to see the divinity in your brothers and sisters, because this world tries to take it away.
Definitely.
It tries to take it away. And I don't say that, you know, to be esoteric. I say that to be real as a psychologist, because like when you're going through those, because you will have rough spots. They will get, you know, you will have rough spots. But you truly love the other people that you're working with. And if you are, and then on the very pragmatic, if you're doing it, my big thing is, and this is what gets me, is that we have to teach our young people how to do analysis about what of the things that make their lives hard. But you know what I'm saying? Because one of the things I hate to hear is when Black people say, oh, we are our own worst enemies, when you don't understand the system of white supremacy. When you don't understand that system of white supremacy and you can't do an analysis about how this system is attacking you, then, you know, that's going to create dissension. Because the main problem is that we as African people face is white supremacy. And you need to know how to be very much analytical, be able to see how insidious and how it works in very systematic ways, in system ways, and how that affects you personally. And I don't think a lot of times, I'm going to say this, and people may disagree, and maybe Dr. Favors will disagree with this, but I don't think a lot of times, I think that our elders have given us that kind of analysis through their stories, the stories. That's why I say this is real important, because then there's this analysis. What did we do well? What didn't we do well? So it's not glamorous, because I think when you look back on, there were some things we didn't do well, because we did start mistrusting each other. We did. Some of us, you know, got a little arrogant. That's real, because we were like, well, we doing this, but it wasn't about I. And you know, if we had made that analysis, I think that would have created more unity. So on one hand, you have the more esoteric things about love, but then on a very practical and real tangible, you got to understand too how this system will make you hate Black people. And so if you automatically not dealing with the internalized hatred that I think a lot of us, in fact, I dare say most of us, I could almost say all of us, but I'm not going to get in any trouble, but a lot of us, because we have been taught not to love Black. And so you can't stick together if you really don't.
And for instance, now with the whole new world of social media, also brings the hate.
You know what I'm
amongst each
saying?
other because of the ignorance that we see.
Like, just allow me. I know we press for time, but like this stuff that's happening with Cornel West and Michael Eric Dyson, that like hurts me to my heart because I'm like, I know like one of my colleagues who participated in the city, and she asked me my thoughts on Facebook, and I said, you know, it's real bad that we as black men have been out of power so long that we don't even know how to deal with our disagreements as men because we haven't been in power in 400 or 500 years, so we don't even know how to act. And so it's real disheartening that you have these two intellectuals, and they really are intellectuals. I should not have thrown my fingers up in quotation like that, Dr. Favors. However, they really are because they're brilliant men, and they're sinking to such levels. All right, putting up that zero.
Well, I just want to say I am truly honored to be able to interview you, to have this meeting, especially because I want to become an activist myself.
I think you already are. You're doing this.
Well, thank you.
You're doing this. I won't even think. I know you are.
I have some future goals and plans that I'm trying to meet. I've always believed in using my voice, and as you mentioned in poetry, you know, poetry, you get to use your voice, and it's very important to me, and I really try to incorporate that pretty much into my life, so that, you know, no one can stop me, even when, you know, those are saying, you know, I think you're coming on a little too strong, especially with Black Power. I'm someone who's all for it because, you know, Malcolm X has, you know, made a lot of quotes in reference to not being able to use your voice and standing up for yourself. And I follow his philosophy as well. And I'll continue to follow his philosophy and through this whole activism, and it's just truly a great honor. I know I want to shake your hand, but I also want to give you a hug because I want to say thank you.
I mean, you give me a hug. I'm not really I do the only handshake with the European people.
Thank you so much.
So I'm so proud of you, and I thank you for, like remembering, and very much sincerity.